That was a fantastic session with Mark Chapman, and now we've got another brilliant session off the back of that. He's been on our screens for more than 20 years in the UK on Revista de La Liga on Sky Sports, and latterly with 5 Live and La Liga TV. So I'd like you all to give a fantastic Leeds Trinity University welcome to award-winning football author, journalist and presenter Guillem Balague. So again, this is probably not the first question you're expecting, but we had John Murray here yesterday, and he mentioned that you went to Marseille for the first time last week, and he was wanting us to ask you about what the experience was like.
Oh my God, that was Marseille. It was unbelievable, and I had been told that they're very passionate, but I was scared. I was working for CBS, so basically CBS have got a very opening way of thinking about what you're supposed to do when you are on the ground. Generally, it's just be in front of a camera, tell a little bit about the atmosphere. No, they wanted me to go outside and just mix with the people there. So we went live, and they started throwing fireworks all around me, and there were people shouting stuff in French that shouldn't have gone on television, but it was in French, hoping that not many people understood. And there was all kind of things that were being stopped because I had people there just trying to block the view. That's the same atmosphere that both the fans of Spurs and the team also got. So from that point of view, you go in thinking, children are not allowed on that pitch. You have to be mature enough to deal with all that. So fantastic atmosphere, but a touch edgy. I would say.
And obviously you've been, like I say, on our screens for quite a long time here in the UK. How did the gig with Sky Sports first come about?
Well, so I finished university in 1991. Yes, last century and a long time ago. Probably you weren't born, but finished university there, and I thought I'm going to England to learn English. I had done, in my generation, we learned French in school. And I'd done about a year and a half of English. So I thought I'll go for 3 months to England. By the way, something I recommend everyone, that you come out of your comfort zone and get out and learn another language, because it opens up your mind and many other things you can get out of it. And the 3 months became a year and a half, 2 years, and the people that were hosting me kind of went like, you've been here for a year and a half. I said, yes, I better move out. And I just continued doing as much work as I could. As Mark said earlier, I just wrote about Prince Charles and Diana and Camilla, and I did cinema reviews and anything that came my way. I distributed bread at 4 o'clock in the morning, I worked in a pub, anything. I remember asking some magazines in Spain, big magazines, can I write for you? I'm in England. So, yeah, no problem, but you won't expect to be paid. And I remember answering, paid? What, like to buy food and stuff like that? No, who wants to be paid these days? So you also have to go through a little bit of that. Anyway, it was Euro 96, and a very famous Spanish radio, they did the show, a Spanish radio show, they did the show in London. I went to see them, and there was a lot of famous people there, and one of them was the editor of a magazine called Don Balón, football magazine, really prestigious at the time, not so much now. And I said, look, I'll be your correspondent if you want. Yeah, no problem. This is 96. And then I realized that Sky Sports were doing Spanish football. And this is where the nose for opportunities come, because obviously nobody called me, but I called them. I said, I work for a Spanish football magazine, and I hear that you do Spanish football. I would like to write about you. Now, how I remember what happened is not what happened, but I'm still going to tell the story, because recently I spoke to the people that were at Sky. Says, no, that's not how it happened. But anyway, that's how I'm telling the story. Which was that I said, okay, I'd like to visit the studios. No problem, come over. Dave Lawrence, the producer of Spanish football at the time, said. They have been doing it for a year with Rob Palmer and Jerry Armstrong. So they said, but you have to be at that time, whatever time it was. I went in, I had no proper clothes to wear. I had long hair, big glasses. The only person I knew that that had proper clothes were a friend of mine, but he's 20 stone. So he gave me a jacket that was like too big. But anyway, I thought I was smart. And as soon as I arrived to Sky Sports, the producer said, right, show starts in half an hour, you sit in front of the camera. I guess you've done a show like this before. Yeah, hundreds of them. I do it all the time. And that was my debut in television. So he went at halftime, he came in and said, look, we want to do a highlight show. Do you want to do it? And again, I thought about it for like a quarter of a second. Yeah. He'd asked 3 other people before, and the 3 had said no. So that was the beginning. We used to call it Spanish football, or whatever it was called at the time. It eventually became Revista de la Liga. And I did it with David Bobbin, rest in peace, and that's 97. Now, once you're in television, other things happen. Then opportunities come to you, but you have to have the bravery in a lot of cases to say yes. Started doing books and writing for media, and a lot of other things that we're going to see in the clip.
Yeah. So just before we move on to the clip, a lot of the books you've written, Maradona, Pep Guardiola, Lionel Messi, you don't mess about with the mid-range. So what is it when you're doing these books about these really big figures? Is it mainly about the interviews with them and getting access with them, or the access of the people around them, and how do you build up those relationships?
So there is a lot of work that goes before you even think of a book. You have to, as Mark said earlier, you have to build trust with people. You have to report on them. In some cases, you do private commercial events, and you present them, and you get to know them a little bit more. But I knew I had a book in me. I didn't know I had 8, and it all comes one after the other for a reason. Very quickly, I do a season on the brink on Liverpool, the famous year that they won the Champions League with Rafa Benitez, and then we couldn't think of anything else. All the books have been published in Orion first, which is not a football publisher; it's a general publisher, but they liked the angle that I was taking on the story, which was I was telling the story of people more than the goals or the records or whatever. And the first one was about the story of that year, but then we started seeing Pep Guardiola doing his magic, and they said, should we do something on Pep? And that was the beginning of the biographies, if you like. You do Pep, you have to do Messi. You do Messi, you have to do Cristiano. And then it's like, what next? And I had it so close I didn't see it. Somebody in Orion said, how about Mauricio Pochettino? Do you think he's worth of a book? Yes. And then it became the best-sold book in the UK that I've done. And then Maradona, because if you got the chance, you have to talk about the biggest character ever in the history of football. And I'm not forgetting anything. I did another book illustrated official book of Barcelona, Football Club Barcelona. Even though I'm an Espanyol fan, but I haven't told that to anyone. I think I can now. But so books came that way.
Yeah, and I know we're going to move on, but just very quickly, building that relationship with Barcelona and also with Tottenham, where they're letting you kind of have that access. How do you go about managing the conversations that you can put in, the conversations that you can't put in? I don't want to burn myself, but I want to make this the best that I can do.
That would be 45 minutes in itself. Fascinating subject, because you have to keep a balance between what you're getting and what you can say, which has to be a bit more that let you say, but at the same time they have to be happy that you say that. It's like a very, very delicate balance. But I was so lucky with the Spurs book, because when I went to Mauricio and I said, look, I like to do a book on what you do, on your season, but generally on what you do. And he's like, and then his wife in the background said, do it. So, okay. He said, yeah, I've been told that I have to do it. I said, well, if we're doing it, as we had such a close relationship, I said, I want to be there every week. I want to be there every Monday, and I want to talk to you. If you're not there, I want to talk to your assistants, to the players, to the chairman even. Yeah, no problem. He said yes to everything. Now, soon after that, Amazon kind of stole my idea. No, obviously, it's a clear idea of they put a lot of money on the table and then take over the whole place. So it's not easy to do that. Anything, I think, is impossible to do it now. Also, there is a commercial value to it, which clubs will want to pay. And all of them have been my books. The only book I paid a little money towards from it was Messi, because I said to his dad, I said, this is going to be massive and we're going to have to update it a few times. I've just updated for the fourth time. I like some of it to go to your foundation. They never ask me for money. Nobody does. That's the amazing thing. And we put 3% to the foundation. But have they been in touch with you about it? Because they haven't told me anything about it. So there's this 3% of benefits that are there being accumulated that should go to Leo Messi's foundation. And just very quickly on just an example of this balance that you have to keep. So on the Pochettino one, I gave him the book because I wanted him to read it, and I wanted him to, because I made it his diary of the season, and it wasn't his diary, obviously. I just made up the diary, but I wanted the person to sound like him. So I said, read it for me, and then he was traveling to the States for a pre-season tournament, and one of the directors of Spurs says, "Oh, what are you reading?" And he was telling me the story. I'm thinking, no. And he says, "Oh yeah, this book that we're doing." No. Do you want to read it? No, don't tell him that. Yeah, we will read it. I'm thinking, oh my God. Anyway, because it was my book with him, but Spurs and Daniel Levy had said, we will sell it in the shops. We're so happy with the manager. If he wants to do it, we'll sell it in the shops. Great. But it's not an official book. Anyway, the book comes back with 27 pages with a red cross on it. Not one or two, 27 pages. And they also said, I'm sorry, but you cannot mention in this book 28 times Alex Ferguson. You can mention it 4 times maximum. And I'm like, right, Mauri, now you're gonna show to me if you're a really good friend of mine, or if the relationship with God is just professional. Every single comma has to stay. What do we do? I says, don't worry, I'll sort this out. So I had a meeting with his assistant, Jesus Perez, and the director of communications of the Spurs, and the director of communications of the Spurs, Sam Fensley. He was actually telling me the whole official line. All these pages have to go. I'm really sorry. We should have been involved from the beginning. Simon, stop. Jesus, talk. And Jesus was like, everything has to stay. Well, instead of 26 pages off, can we just take... No, everything has to stay. Anyway, we convinced him to keep every single comma. And Simon, at the end of the conversation, said, I just did my role. I know everything has to go in. And then I understood him as well, that sometimes they just have to... But yeah, there the club wanted to take over. Pochettino decided, no way, this is my story. And then we sold 24,000 copies in the first week. Which goes into the Sunday Times bestseller, which means that for the rest of my days, you have to call me a bestseller author. Because for 1 week, I was a bestseller. And now, you would see in all the books, Orion does that, the bestseller author for 1 week. But it's enough. So, yes.
Fantastic. And I think you're just going to take us through some of your...
Yeah, I've got an idea, but I'd like you to get involved a little bit. So I've got my show reel here, and I've got it in the webpage, but we've downloaded it. And the idea is I'm going to play you'll see what I do. Every now and again I'll stop because I see something that I think you should know, either the tone or the kind of thing that I'm doing, or how close we are to the person we've spoken to, something like that. But if you also, I may just ask questions if you want to get involved. Because you will see this and you will say, wow, what a career. But that's not what it is about. It's about how you get to do this and what you can learn from it. So if that's okay, yeah, I'll head there. So first thing to say is that I am a storyteller. That's what I am. And I use whatever platform to tell a story. I love telling stories. I think it comes from my family. They're all storytellers, and my grandfather was a poet, and my granddad was blind, so you had to tell him stories so he could see. And that's my passion. That really is my passion. And I've done it everywhere I've been allowed to do it. For instance, this would be the beginning of the show reel, is a documentary on the World Cup win, but especially on Iniesta and what happened to him. So you have to be prepared it's a story I know very well anyway, but you have to research to make sure that, because you don't know in advance the questions, to make sure that you're going to be saying the right things and what's important.
For Iniesta, it was like the perfect ending to what had been a really hard, perhaps one of the hardest years of his life. And it wasn't just because injuries kept appearing. That mixed with the fact that Dani Jarque, one of his best friends, the captain of Espanyol, died in the summer in pre-season.
Now, it's a sad story. I knew Dani, and obviously he was a close friend with Iniesta. As you notice, when you get interviewed, if you get the opportunity to tell a story, whatever it is, what's important is the tone. It has to be a low tone here, it has to be an emotional tone. It comes naturally anyway, but you cannot just deliver everything you do in the same way. It's a simple thing, I know, you know all of this, but I think you notice it very clearly here.
There was a lot of things that were actually affecting him big time. He's not just in his football career, but in his life. He had to overcome that to be happy, and he couldn't find happiness anywhere.
Now that is the first time that you hear publicly that Iniesta had gone through mental health issues. Now he's quite open about it, but this was done, I don't know, I look 10 years younger, don't I? So, even though that beard made me look old, but anyway, since then he's spoken about it. He had told me that he had taken antidepressants. This is around the World Cup era, in fact, during his professional career, and he couldn't feel anything. He had to go through things because he had to, but not because he felt them. And of course, that moment was one a big low, which coincides with one of the big highs because he scores in the Champions League final. So you only get to know all this through a lot of meals with him, his people, getting to know, listen, and be curious about the story. And then things come up, which then you keep. Generally, I would say, I don't know. I use 20% of what I know. And in this kind of circumstance, I had to be very, very careful because he hadn't made it public yet. But I pushed, and I told him as well that he should come out because he was going to help people, which he has done since then.
In the famous battles that took place here between Mourinho and his senior players, Cristiano Ronaldo sided with his teammates. That and his extraordinary professionalism earned everybody's respect at the club.
This was when I was in Sky Sports. We used to do a lot of documentaries, but documentaries that were like, right, you've got 2 days, one cameraman, no sound man, nothing, go. And you think, you see things like this, that we get given access to the changing room, and then of course that comes out in an hour, a lovely hour, really nicely edited, in a lot of locations. Especially with Sky, a lot of the time was, you've got 2 days. So, find me 4 locations, you've got a cameraman, you write the story, go. And that was quite a lovely learning process, because I know that now BBC has changed, but BBC still do things very, very carefully, and you've got the sound man, and you've got 2 cameras, and you've got time, and you've got a producer, but Sky saying, go and do it, just puts you in the most sometimes awkward situations that you have to resolve yourself. There is a lot of it in journalism. You may come out with one idea, but be open-minded to absorb what's happening for when you have to say it, or to tell the story, or if it's on television, when you have to capture it with pictures. Just be very open. Have a schematic idea what you want to do, but just let the world tell you the story.
He's a captain here without the armband. No trophies, but 34 goals up till June 2013.
And no auto cue of anything. It's like you have to memorize 2-minute speech, and that happens relatively easy. Again, when you're memorizing things and you have to be in front of camera, make sure that you're not blocked by that. Just always remember that you're telling the story to somebody. So if it's not exactly the word that you were going to use, that comes with experience, by the way. Just come up with something. Just tell me the story.
So?
Yeah, go on. No. I out of all the stuff I do, hardly ever autocue. Normally, I presented things.
What's that word?
Autocue.
Autocue, if anything, you know how to autocue. Okay. What is, can you expand on that? Sorry.
Yeah, autocue is the it's a thing that it's under the camera, all the words written for you. That's what all the presenters do, apart from Mark, who's a genius and doesn't need anything. So in things like this, you are in front of a camera, and they just memorize the speech, and then you say it. It's probably like 5 takes or whatever, and then you get the best one. Auto cues is good when you are, for instance, tonight we are on ITV4 doing Spanish football, and Semra Hunter, the presenter, will have an auto cue because we've got really short time to go from one thing to the other, from one story to the other, out to the break, and then if you've got it all written, it really, really helps. I'm normally on the other side, just commenting on what's happening or giving the context. Obviously, for that you just don't need auto cue.
Join us after the break to find out if his golden year continued after the summer. Since the early 90s, the training pitches of Football Club Barcelona have provided some of the most famous names in the modern game.
Now, this is just another documentary, but once you get to know people, once they know your prestige or what you've done before, it's relatively easy to go to a club like Barcelona and say, look, we want to be 7 days filming and following players that are coming through, but also talking to some of the top players in the first team and get them to meet the youngsters and men and women, boys and girls, and then just put that into a documentary. It's relatively easy because you're actually selling their product, really. That football clubs are also that. But it helps. One thing that I've done by pure intuition, I mean, I've linked myself to big brands, and by association, I'm associated with them. So I work now for CBS, which is the biggest network in America, for BBC, La Liga TV, which is the official channel of La Liga. So that you do that, you knock doors and says, it's BBC or CBS. Normally they open it, but also they need to know that you've done a good job before.
Remember the name, Lionel Messi. A glorious production line to a golden age for both club and country. But in recent years, the path has become much harder. And in truth, only the very few will make it to the top. So how is the club helping to prepare their prospects for life beyond football in a world so challenging and unforgiving? For the first time, this acclaimed academy is opening its doors to us as we follow 5 young hopefuls on the journey to become.
This may sound stupid to you, but around that time, which must have been 7-8 years ago, I decided I didn't want to look like everybody else. This is just the beginning of it. You see the square thing, and the waistcoat. That's not. It's like suit and blue shirt and tie, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't understand why women could wear whatever they wanted and we couldn't. So it got to a point where it's like, I'm going my way, and I'm lucky that having started my career whatever in 30 years ago, that I can do that. But now, for instance, in CBS has become a bit of a thing. That my shirts, people like my shirts, even though there's some of them are really crazy. And CBS, which unlike the BBC, for instance, or La Liga TV, we just people that talk. CBS want personalities, so they've pushed me to in the documentaries I'm doing for them. We are doing the 3rd one on the season. They pushed me to just be me, and well, that's wonderful. But also it helped, for instance, in the pandemic. Because if everybody's wearing a mask, and I can see my shirt, everybody knows who I am. And that happened with Nagelsmann, with Klopp. Oh, they know, because the shirt tells the story. So, be yourselves.
The next star. Do you see yourself standing up by the bench with being able to hear all that from the fans as manager of Liverpool? Is that something you dreamt of, you thought of?
Yeah, for sure I have dreamt of that. For sure I have to prove myself, I need to prepare, but if I decide somewhere along the way to take my chances as a manager.
Which he has done since this interview. Quite clearly, we don't have time for the whole show, really. So I'll do a little bit, and then the last 10 minutes or so we'll ask questions. But I'll stop with the things that come into my head. I'll share with you. So look how we are positioned. I always insist on the idea to be as close as I can to the person. This was an interview with Xabi Alonso, a famous Real Madrid player, who then became Real Sociedad B manager, and now he's at Bayer Leverkusen. And this was at a time where he was preparing himself, and he's going to go to Liverpool at some point. And I think he says here, but Stevie has to go first, and then I'll go second. Not sure that's the path now. But anyway, I want to be close. I want to look at them in the eyes. I want them to be relaxed, seated comfortably. I think he's forgotten at this point, 20 minutes into the conversation, that we're recording it. Because if you are, you don't sit like that, do you? With a hand in the face and, just... But there was a microphone, and that's, to me, I think that's the secret of a lot of what I do. I make them forget about it.
Guillem, so is that the secret, do you think? Because obviously a lot of these guys, I know you did an interview with Leo Messi a bit further on in this, are so well media trained. Is it about getting them to relax a bit? Is it getting them to...
Is it at the end?
I think getting towards the end, yeah.
Let's do the Messi one, because that's an interesting one. And I will answer your question. I don't know if many of you have seen this,
si bien lo lleva por dentro,
but I wanted to put it from the
el golpe que
beginning.
iba a ser sobre todo para Thiago, el bajón y iba a significar y bueno, ya estar en todos estos días.
It's about 5 minutes long. I won't play all of it. I'll just play the
O
beginning.
sea, que te dio para más del Jesse. Follow Peterborough United and come and see us if you're in England, because we produce good football.
Yeah, come on.
Travel the world.
Just very quickly on that, as it's just come out.
Indeed. Beautiful.
Peterborough United, just very quickly. I'm the chairman of a football club that gives opportunities to people. So we've got one of the biggest media departments in the whole of grassroots football. We must have about 8 people involved in it. The head of media actually is in India. We've got from his company, somebody that deals with us daily. So we produce programs, tweeting, Twitch, YouTube, podcast, the lot. And that is my little academy for those that want to start in journalism. So the path is whoever is committed enough and want to do it, wherever they live, I want to help us. And they show that commitment, and they do things well, and they learn, and there is that process of learning. Then I've already moved them to the head of communications has got his own company in India and produces things for a lot of people. Again, social media, podcasting, and a lot of that. If they do that very well, my agent has got a he's got a representation company, and 2 of the people that went through this filter ended up in the industry, working for my agent, doing, again, social media and marketing and all that. It's a path that any can get. So if anybody's interested, get in touch.
Can I ask about your connections to Rafa Benitez, please?
Yes.
I really want to know what he really thinks of his time at Everton Football Club.
I won't forget about that one. Messi goes first. And if I do, forgive me. But anyway, let me deal with Messi first. Now, this is filmed by our assistant producer said to her, from the moment he arrives, filming. He just arrived to Paris. We were given 5 minutes, and he did like 8 interviews. 5 minutes, and we were like 6th. And the interview wasn't given to the BBC, the interview was given to me. Because I'm his biographer, he knows me, I've done 8 commercial events with him. We sold Gillette thingies, and we sold televisions, and we sold mobile phones and all kinds. So we get on really well. He needs to be surrounded by people he trusts. That's so important. And to be actually in his very, very, very tiny close circle, it's one of the lucky things in my life. So when he comes in, I know that I've got 5 minutes to relax him and to bring him into a place where only him and I exist. And I think I got it spot on, because what everybody else was asking, you're going to meet Neymar and PSG and you tears of Barcelona, da, da, da. I said, I won't play it all, but I started saying, do you know that flight you took from Rosario to Buenos Aires first, and then Buenos Aires to Barcelona when you were 13? And you were crying from Rosario to Buenos Aires, but then you fell asleep because you were sick on the way to Barcelona. And then you entered a completely different world. The Barcelona-Paris flight that you took yesterday, is it like that? Talk to me about your kids. How are they taking it? How are you? I mean, when did you find out about it? And did you cry? That kind of thing took him into a completely different place. And because I know how to get into him, kind of thing, I think it was a really good little chat. But I only put the first minute because I said to the assistant producer, just film. From the moment he arrives, just film. And as you will notice, the interview doesn't start until second 50 or whatever. So listen to what I'm saying to him, if you can read the subtitles first.
¿Qué tal? Todo bien. Bienvenido a mi humilde sala de estar. Hoy tengo agua, ¿Quieres agua? No, vale.
Llegó el sol, Llegó el sol.
Nous avons de parler français. No te ha dado tiempo a aprender el inglés al final, Que te pregunté la última vez que íbamos a hacer en inglés.
Yo llevo 1 año y medio estaba con inglés, aprendiendo.
Ya, como yo antes de ir a Inglaterra, y el primer día pensé que no sabía nada.
Sí, ¿no?
Pero bueno.
Sí, bueno, pero cuando estás ahí...
No, es enseguida. O sea, que te dio para más del yes y el...
Sí, la verdad que entiendo bastante, pero hablar todavía... Podría hablar.
Sorry, that is not the interview. But that's the most fascinating bit of the interview.
En ese momento lo primero que haces que es...
Basically, I'm relaxing him.
O encaminar el acuerdo con él. No costó dormir, no costó...
Lloraste bastante.
I'm asking him without asking him. Just fine at home.
Yes,
You're at home. I mean, I came out with that. Welcome to my mother's living room. And mentally, I think he's somewhere else.
Entiendo bastante, pero hablar todavía... Podría hablar, creo que...
Para los árbitros igual.
Pero,
Para los árbitros.
And when I published the whole thing, I published this video, which went viral. Basically, PSG rang me. Not his people, because I know his people at PSG rang me. Is, why did you publish the first bit? You know that's not allowed. Nobody told me anything. But I know where they were coming from. If I was in their position, I wouldn't want that there, because he doesn't think he's been filmed. At the same time, I thought he was so innocent and relaxed that it was a good thing to come out with. This idea that he was learning English, nobody knew. We've spoken about it. Every time we met him, I kind of asked him a couple of questions in English. After the second one, he's just, sorry, what did you say? Because his English was never good. But he came out for the first time publicly that he was learning English because he was thinking of going to Manchester City. I'm adding that. So that was the remember, I had 5 minutes. And the interview was given to me, but then I thought, who do I give it to? Where will it be the biggest impact? For him and for me, and for the story. And I rang BBC, I said, if you put it out now, this is your Messi interview. And I think, went really well.
Pero me tienes que ayudar a rellenar los huecos de los 2 grandes viajes que has hecho. De Rosario a Buenos Aires y de Buenos Aires a Barcelona.
Notice the shirt. I was very comfortable with it, and notice the body gesture. No, coming close to him. He's also close. So at that point, it's him and I. So in a minute or whatever, 50 seconds, I managed to make him forget that this is an interview. And obviously, he didn't have to come out with a speech he had prepared or whatever he had prepared with his media guys. You know that before a chat like this or 8 chats like this, it will go through the media. The media guy says, look, when you talk about Barcelona, remember to say this. When you talk about PSG, remember to say this. This was nothing to do with anything that he had prepared.
Barcelona, con 12 años, y luego de ayer. Si no recuerdo mal, de Rosario a Buenos Aires lloraste bastante. De Buenos Aires a Barcelona, estabas un poco así del estómago, pero dormiste casi todo el viaje.
Long question, I have to say. but I'm putting him in situation. The answer is brilliant. And a less experienced journalist would have just gone, or me a few years back would have gone, right, okay. So,
¿Puede ser?
Fue hace mucho, pero no, creo que sí, no me acuerdo.
so I don't think it's translated. No, it's not translated. So that was a long time ago. I can't remember. I thought, oh, okay. It didn't start very well. But he then he knew what I was trying to get at, and then, you know, he just thought about it.
Sí, era chiquito, dormía fácil. Creo que estábamos por comer, se empezó a mover un poquito y ya me tiré a dormir y se tal viaje conmigo.
Lo digo porque es el gran viaje, el gran salto.
And then we could chat in for 5 minutes.
¿Y cómo lo comparas con el viaje del otro día a París? In 14 games, at the time of his
So
withdrawal,
let's go somewhere else.
at goal. Live, he thought of football and there is an empathy there. He feels.
So you see me as a
He was
presenter
a bit
or
concerned
asking
for
questions.
Atletico, but since then, Griezmann has scored.
Here with Sky Sports News. No, Sky Sports, this was the last version of Revista when Sky weren't interested about helping Revista at all. But we still managed to get something out.
4 goals and claimed
So a
2 assists in 4 games compared to
stats.
just 3 goals and 3 assists in 14 games before that.
He must have balls in the.
Now this is a different role. So one thing is to actually prepare something or do a documentary or an interview, but I've been lucky enough to be asked to give my opinion on things. On that, you should remember, because I've got many students along the years saying, you know, I wanna do what you do. Originally my answer used to be, but I do what I do, so we've got a problem. You have to find your own path, basically, that's what I was getting at. But many feel that what I do is great because I give my opinion on football. That's 0.01% of the people that I vote journalism. That's just because I happen to be Spanish, I have good relationships, I've done books, a lot of things that allow me to come and explain a story like this. And when you doing punditry or you've been asked questions, a little bit as I was saying at the beginning, the tone is important. Get people engaged. I cannot stop moving my arms. I'm telling a story, in this case about Pochettino. Obviously, I was interested in doing this because it links me to it. That this was a show that Geoff Reeves used to have.
He hugs people.
No, yeah, but then once you got that, you get the player. So there is an empathy there. He feels.
Now, silences are so important when you're on television or radio, including a kind of forced, but natural as well, on words that come out. I used to dread that. It used to be my worst part of getting involved, because I'm thinking this silent to you sounds because you're half interested or half attentive about what I'm talking about. But to me, it feels like 5 minutes. It's really, really hard to take when words don't come out. But then I realized, as I'm doing now, that it catches your attention. So you can play with silences. It's not a problem. On the other hand, if you do it well, just what is he about to say? You will be with your cup of tea, and silence is so deafening.
What would be the word? The charisma. There's a charisma that people just get attracted to immediately, and very quickly you open up. So Hugo Lloris will tell you this changed his life. He thought of football and the profession and life.
I think we're kind of getting to the end. I mean, there's so much I could tell you about this, but anyway, I'm giving you an outlook on the whole thing. And now, if there are things you want to ask,
if there's anybody who wants to ask a question, if you
Everton.
can just put your hands up. Well, we'll go to Everton. Yeah, do the Everton one first, then go on then.
All right, are we're not recording. We are recording.
Do you want to tell me after?
And I don't mind, because I think there was xenophobia involved in that, and it was really, really serious stuff. He was bullied and he was insulted, racially insulted.
His house got torched, didn't it? At one point.
There was, and that's another thing that we all fall for. There was a sheet with some writing, "Go home, we don't want you," that kind of thing, that appeared in Goodison Park near his house, written by one person, because the writing is the same, okay?
Yeah.
But it went everywhere, so it looked like, you know, the whole of Everton fans, which most of them were anyway, against him. But one thing is to actually have a go at somebody who's actually a professional, who has succeeded, who's coming with the idea of helping the club, and who has been chosen by the people that are on the club, by the way. And another one is to treat him the way that he was treated. My worry at that time was I was the only one defending him, and in the media, nobody picked on the xenophobia and bullying that was taking place. That affected him big time. At the end of his stay in, nobody knows this, but at the end of his stay at Everton, he had the vaccines, and the last one went very wrong, and he stopped feeling his feet, and his life was, his physical life was a little bit of a mess, and he had to deal with the other stuff. So that's why I became very annoyed at the whole thing. And if I did it in school when I was a kid, and I would do it all the time. If I sense that somebody's bullied, you have me there. And you have me there against anybody. If it's 100 or 1,000,000, I don't care. So I did a thread explaining what he was trying to do. Because I'm thinking, you're just bullying him, but not listening to what he's doing. I'll put it out there and do whatever you want with it. As a consequence, I got bullied, and the threats and all kinds. In fact, the Maradona book was killed by the Everton fans that went on Amazon and put 1 star out of 5 and put negative reviews on the book. Now, if this had been my last book, my first book, my career would have suffered, no doubt, because your book doesn't get. So now, if you go to the 100 best-sold books in Amazon in football, you've got my Cristiano one, which is an old one. You've got the Messi one, which is a new one. Maradona, which is very recent, a year and a half ago, is disappeared. So I think it's got like 3.8 out of 5 or something like that. But only because people have forgotten about that, and now people have put in the right reviews. It's a very good book. So what do you do after that? My mind blew up because I'm thinking, we've both been bullied here. Nobody's defending us. So I went on Twitter and said, look, my book has been killed on Amazon, so you should know, Everton fans, you got what you wanted. Well done. And that's it. And I thought maybe some react thinking, actually, we are doing it to survive his career, this is not fair. But instead what I got was more bullying, but that's football. So difficult situation, but one in which he tried to do his best. And now every time that Everton wins a couple of games, they get a lot of direct messages, because it's open in my Twitter. You, this and that, you haven't got a clue, but look at us. Which goes very quiet when they lose a couple of games in a row. Yeah. But they will struggle because this is a club that infrastructure-wise and organizational-wise, they are obsolete. And he tried to change that, wasn't allowed by people inside the camp. So Frank is trying to do a bit of that as well.
Don't worry, I'm a Liverpool fan.
That's all right. So am I. I thought that didn't help. Either Rafa or me.
Hi, Guillem. You were talking about how you're a storyteller and that's who you are. Can you define storytelling and what that means to you?
It's a filter, right? These things happen here, and that goes through my head, and then it converts into a story, into a book, into a podcast, into a video for YouTube, into a program on television. I'm a great lover of literature, and I've always read a lot. A bit less lately because there's so much traveling going on, but I don't read biographies, not many. I did read when I started doing it, so I knew of the structure, how things were done. I thought, I don't want to do any of this. And then I thought, what is it that I want to do? And I thought, but my passion is storytelling, and the best storytelling is in literature. So García Márquez or Cortázar, this is Latin American literature. Salman Rushdie, all those people tell stories so wonderfully. How? And then every now and again, especially when I have a new book, I'm thinking, I want to find a book that allows me, that I'm going to steal the structure of it. I know what's happened. I will research it very deeply. And then I'll use that structure to tell the story. So for instance, on the Maradona one, on the introduction, the best report, article, I don't know how to define it, that I've ever read. It's Frank Sinatra Has a Cold. It's a story that was published in Vogue, I think, many moons ago. And it's just basically the writer tells the story of Frank Sinatra, who's going to go to a concert, but actually he's got a cold. Through that, he tells so much about Frank and his entourage and what it means to be a superstar and how you deal with weaknesses and all that. So I thought, I'm going to copy this to put it into the introduction of the Maradona book, and the structure is exactly the same. So one thing is what you see, another one is how you put it out there. It is a job. It's not just something that comes naturally, and that job comes through structure, through knowing what you have to say, through knowing the beginning and the end, where you want to pick it, all those things. Storytelling is not just I'm just going to write something. So, but I could be a whole hour and more talking about how to attract the audience and how to get them emotional. I mean, people have told me that reading the Pep book, for instance, brought tears to people's eyes when he collects all his stuff from the office, having been in such an intense 4 years, that those that remember were intense, were beautiful. They took us to a new place. Football it makes us change our life about the game, about what we think about it. We learn about the game through it as well. We have Messi, the best Messi, all that. And then there was one day where he's in the office and he puts, his photographs and the papers and the pens in a box and takes the box away. And you, as a reader, I left you inside the office and let him go. And that was, for many, was a shock, because I was talking about their lives. It affected all of our lives. For those that are in love with football, it was something so new, so different, but it finished. And obviously, endings are always emotional.
Hi Guillem, first of all, lovely shirt, it's your best one yet. I was wondering if I could perhaps talk to you about a few things. So obviously you mentioned Rafa beforehand, and I was a massive Newcastle fan when Rafa was at his best before he went to China. And first question not a few, but do you think Everton made a really poor decision selecting him to be the man who would take over after Ancelotti, after hit some decent form?
Let me tell you, I'll answer that, but I'll be more interested to talk about the profession and what you can learn from it than details like that. That is what we talk when we're here or we're in the bar.
Right, I've got another one. So
okay.
I about 5 years ago, I trained with Espanyol, the team you're a fan of.
Okay.
And I met with goalkeeper Diego Lopez. Do you remember when he was at Real Madrid?
Yeah.
And I spoke to him for about 5 or 10 minutes, and he said he was lovely. And he described Messi as a silent assassin in one of the little clips. And this has led me on to my question of, have you ever met someone you don't really like at all, or someone you think, oh, he's a little bit, he's not really for me?
No, that's a very interesting question. So the Cristiano Ronaldo biography comes after Messi.
Yeah.
And as I always do, I tell this subject, I'm going to do a book on you. That means 2.5 years of my life dedicated to getting to know you, psychology, sociology, where you come from. I'm going to go and visit your district. I want to know your family and all that, but it's my book. And Cristiano said, yeah, okay, let's do it. But I need to talk to you at some point. I had presented commercial events with Cristiano as well, so we knew. And he helped me a lot when he went to Madrid and knew what was going on. And I respected all that until I could tell the story, etc. But a year after the Messi book came out, the Telegraph published an extract, because after a year you have to do an update, add 10,000 words. And the Telegraph picked nothing from the update, but picked something that already was in the book, in the Messi book, in which I explained that Cristiano called motherfucker to anybody who approached Messi, who held Messi, who liked Messi. That was a time where there was a big rivalry, right? And before putting that in the book, I had to check it and double check it and triple check it. So I was okay with it. But for a year, nobody picked on it. And then the Telegraph picked on it. First thing I thought is like, nobody's read the book, because that's been there for a year. But secondly, that went mental at that point. I was talking to him about doing a book. At the end of that day, he comes out with a post on Facebook in which he says, it's all a lie, and I'm going to take this man to court. lawyers are on the case. Did you get a call from any lawyer? Because I didn't. But that meant that I couldn't do the book in the way I wanted.
Yeah.
So I thought that destroyed my plan. But then I thought, you know what? Like I was telling you earlier, just observe what's around you when you're about to tell a story. I thought, you know what? I'm going to tell the story of what happens when you cannot access anymore the person you're going to be talking about. So I did tell the story in the introduction of what happened between Cristiano and me. And then I went on to tell the story actually much freely, because I had got a call just before this Telegraph piece. I got a call from Jorge Mendes in which he said, okay, we're going to help you, you're a good guy, but don't mess around with us. I said, what does that mean? He said, look, Jorge, we sit down, go for a coffee, I'll tell you what I'm trying to do. Is, but everything that gets published, we know in advance. Talking about other books and other things. He says, yeah, but this is not going to be like this. But we need to talk anyway. This time the Telegraph things happen, and then the relationship breaks down with both Mendes and Cristiano. And then I'm free to say that Cristiano couldn't sleep in the evenings until his dad, full of booze, coming to the house, or sometimes as an 8-year-old, will take his dad home and then sit him down, and whatever it was about his dad being there, and at least being there, made him sleep. You couldn't have told that story if I had gone through the house of Jorge Mendes. So the book comes out, and it comes out at the same time as the Cristiano documentary, which actually is a Mendes documentary, but it gets released in London, and I go to the release of that, and I cross paths with both Cristiano and Mendes. And Cristiano sees me, and he goes, facadita, like you've knifed me in the back. And George passed by and says, George, the book is out. And says, I know. Says it's a good book because it tells a story of a guy that's, reached his dreams and gone against all the odds. And he says, I know. You and me have to talk. It wasn't one of those, you and me have to talk and I'm going to break your legs. It was more like, you and me have to talk because I can see where you're coming from. George and I keep talking. We've been in touch since. The update of the Cristiano book when he goes to Italy, very cleverly, the publishers don't make it my book, even though the name is almost as big as Ronaldo's, but they sell it as his biography. Another bestseller, I don't know how you say that in Italian, but I'm also a bestseller in Italy. And it's like his book then. So Georgia had to be close to me because he knew that if I was going to update it with whatever, he had to tell the stories that would go into that book. I went to see him, the first game that he was playing with Juventus, and again, Cristiano said, Chris, can we talk? I'm not talking to you. That was the beginning of my Italian version of the book. Because the story, if you're going to be part of that world, or the world of one of these guys, either be their friends, of course, but being an enemy is not a bad place to be in, because at least you're still in the head. So yeah, that's an example of it.
Thank you very much.
So Guillem, there's like kind of a general consensus that in the English media, especially in football, the English press is incredibly harsh on kind of foreign players especially, and because you've done work in so many different countries in football, off the top of my head I can think of a couple of players I'm sure you know very well, in Fernando Torres and Alvaro Morata, who had incredibly difficult times in past their career in the Premier League. And I was wondering, your perspective on the inside. Do you think it's actually true that it is more volatile in the English media?
Interesting.
Than other countries?
When you tell the story, and I think every British journalist falls for that, English mostly. When you tell the story, this is the best league in the world. This is a special league. This is a special place. When you're telling that story, whoever comes from abroad will be suspicious. You're not going to adapt. It's not going to work. And I used to joke a lot with Pep Guardiola before he came and said, you're going to get that. And you're going to get it every time you lose or draw. You're going to say, see, you just cannot adapt. And you can take it two ways. You can actually say, but football is played with the ball, it's 22 here and everywhere else. Or you can actually say, okay, I'll bring me this and I'll prove it to you constantly. And that'll make you better. And that's what most, because an elite player, when he gets to the top, they tend to have that mentality anyway. I'll beat you. You don't like me because I'm foreign. I'll beat you. I'll prove it to you. And yes, they get measured differently, absolutely. But it's not a bad thing. It's happened to me. It's fine. I mean, I'm thankful that I've done my career mostly here, because now I know in Spain it's very, very difficult to get a career going. I've been given opportunities here that it's just a dream. So I am thankful to the UK for both the opportunities and the challenges. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Good afternoon, Mr. Balague. Hope you're well. It's been almost 30 years now since La Liga made the decision to change over from the socios business model. Now only 4 Liga teams are still run as socios. Do you think that's been beneficial for Spanish football and the league as a whole to make that change, or do you think it has ultimately cost them some progression?
No, on the other hand, that's helped a lot. There's only 4 teams, Osasuna, Athletic Club, Barcelona, Madrid, that are run by season ticket holders. That is a completely different debate, but they're not. They're not. They're run by people who are at the top and who manipulate the opinion of to get whatever they want. But in any case, they have to vote for presidents, and that is a healthy thing to do. Yet again, the people that vote is a very minuscule number compared to all the season ticket holders. But anyway, it's quite a democratic process. The rest, they have to get their house in order, because the debts were unbelievable. And Tebas is doing a great job in making sure that with the difficulties to go through financial fair play, you actually have to provide a healthy financial environment. Otherwise, you're not allowed into the competition. That is great. So we improved a lot on that. Where we're going next, that's a completely different debate, but it helps that clubs are not run by season ticket holders. Because where we're going next could be a Super League or whatever it is, a shorter competition, whatever it is. It's good that clubs will have a voice, and that is professionalized, and they can improve on that anyway. But yeah, we're a modern league, no doubt about it, and so we've gone a good direction.
What do you think about being nominated as one of the best football journalists for 2022?
Thank you. That's a question I've asked him to ask. Amazing because it means absolutely nothing to most people, but to me it's a pat in the back. It's like, well done. So I take it, but I don't know where the selection comes from, because you've got Fabrizio, who is the master of transfers and whatever, and you've got Gerard Romero, who is a YouTuber, and then you've got me, who do all these things, and then but that anybody thought that I could be part of that group, just amazing. Because one thing that I think it kind of shows. So I went on Twitter in 2009, right at the beginning. I was the first one in the UK that I knew of that put a web page for a journalist. I started doing podcasts and put up my own YouTube channel right at the beginning. I've always tried new things, and I'm 53 now, and I feel that with that kind of thing, they're telling me, yeah, you are at the forefront. Fine, you're doing well. So I love it. No chance I'm going to win, of course, but still.
We've just got one last question, Guillem, and then anybody else? I know there's a few people that have had hands up. You can pop over and ask them a question just at the end, but this will just be the last one.
Hi, Guillem. I just wanted to ask, do you sometimes find it hard because the world of football is very different when you're quite close to players, and when you get access to certain information and things, do you find it hard to sometimes, you can't be allowed to say certain things, or certain things have to be kept private? Because, obviously, again, some people sometimes forget that footballers are human beings, and that, they can't always share everything with, fans and the whole world. So do you find it hard sometimes to keep those certain things private?
As I said earlier, I use 20% of what I know. when to use it is important, and that's where sometimes conflict happens. But you are doing a job, and they know you are doing a job, and you're friends of some of these guys. Some of my closest friends are football people. So sometimes we have different interests, but very, very, very rarely in 30 years of my career I've upset anybody, because it's about the long term. It's about making sure that they pick your phone again. Perhaps one of the early ones that showed me a lot was with Rafa Benitez, because when Rafa comes in, he was a bunch of Spanish coaches, emigrants really, like I was, and we identified ourselves as immigrants. They never said I'll help you, but they did, and I never said I'll help you back, but I did. But it was the beginning of my career. I didn't have many contacts. Rafa was a big source of mine, and every now and again he will disappear, and I will stop sleeping, eating, because it's like, if he doesn't talk to me, where's my career going? I'm going nowhere, because he's giving me all the stuff. But he took one for me once, and with that I'll finish. So I used to do a column for the Mirror. 1 year, never again, because what comes out is not what you've written. The headlines are taken out of context, a lot of stuff like that. But I did tell a story that happened, a conversation that happened in the changing room, which I knew not through Rafa, through a player. And I told the story. Jamie Carragher, who's now a close friend of mine, but at the time was at Liverpool, brings the Mirror to the changing room, and in the middle of a chat of Rafa Benitez with the players, throws it to the floor. You've been talking to your friend again. Look at this. What comes out here, what you say here has to stay here. In brackets, Jamie Carragher, the biggest leak in the changing room. But anyway, says you shouldn't tolerate that. And Rafa looks at the player that he knows that he's been with me having dinner. He knows it's him. Looks at him and says to Jamie, "Okay, I'm sorry. I won't talk to him again." It wasn't him. But he took it, and I didn't find out the story through him. Somebody told me that he'd done that, and I said to Rafa, "Thank you." And the player, and then Rafa went to the player after and says, "Stop talking to me," which he didn't.
Well, that's been a thoroughly entertaining hour and a bit. So I'd like to thank you to Guillem for turning up today.